"Don't touch that bag with your left hand, Officer Mercer." The words were quiet, almost gentle, but they stopped him cold. Daniel Mercer was bent halfway into the driver's side of a black sedan, one gloved hand hidden beneath the seat, the other resting against the doorframe as red and blue lights washed over the empty road. 10 feet behind him, Maya Brooks stood beside his patrol car with her wrists secured in front of her, her posture calm, her eyes fixed on the dark window of her own vehicle. Mercer slowly turned his head. Rain tapped against the pavement and gathered along the shoulders of the road, turning the asphalt into a mirror of flashing color. "What did you say?" he asked. Maya did not raise her voice. "I said you should be careful with your left hand." For 1 second, something uncertain moved across his face. Then the familiar confidence returned. He straightened, adjusted the front of his uniform, and looked at her as though calmness itself were an act of defiance. "You think you're clever?" he asked. Maya's expression did not change. "I think you should finish what you started." Mercer stared at her, trying to decide whether she had seen him. She had. Not directly, but clearly enough. The rain-darkened window had reflected the movement of his shoulder, the angle of his elbow, and the small plastic bag that had appeared between his fingers before disappearing beneath her seat. He believed her hands were restrained. He believed the road was empty. He believed the camera on his uniform was off. What he did not know was that Maya had spent 6 months learning every detail of the way he operated, including which hand he used when he thought no one important was watching. Mercer stepped away from the car and held up the bag as if he had discovered buried treasure. His expression changed into something official, rehearsed, almost bored. "Well," he said, "looks like we found the reason you were so nervous." Maya looked at the bag, then at him. "I wasn't nervous. People like you always say that." The sentence came easily, too easily, shaped by years of saying similar things to people he never expected to challenge him. A passing truck slowed near the shoulder, then continued into the rain. No witnesses stopped. No doors opened. The road remained silent. Mercer seemed to take that silence as permission. "You were driving a car registered in a neighborhood you don't live in," he continued. "You avoided eye contact. You questioned a lawful stop. Now we find this." Maya listened carefully, storing every word. His report was already forming in his mind, polished before the arrest was complete. She could hear it in the rhythm of his voice. Suspicious behavior. Probable cause. Officer safety. Contraband discovered during a lawful search. The same phrases had appeared in case after case, each one attached to a black driver whose life had changed before anyone thought to ask whether Mercer was telling the truth. He moved closer. "You still want to act like you know more than me?" Maya lifted her eyes to his badge. Water clung to its metal edges, making it shine beneath the patrol lights. "No," she said. "I just know exactly who you are." Mercer smiled, but the smile did not reach his eyes. Somewhere beneath his confidence, a question had begun to form. How did she know about his left hand? How had she seen anything from where she stood? And why, after being framed on an empty road after midnight, did she look less like a frightened suspect and more like someone waiting for a clock to run out? Maya heard the faint vibration against her wrist. One pulse, then another. The signal had reached the federal surveillance team less than half a mile away. Every word was being captured. Every second was being preserved. Mercer believed he had planted evidence beneath her seat. In reality, he had just planted the final piece of evidence against himself. 17 minutes earlier, Maya Brooks had stepped out of a 24-hour diner on the eastern edge of Richmond, carrying a paper cup of coffee she had no intention of drinking. The rain had just begun, a thin silver mist drifting beneath the parking lot lights, and the clock above the diner door read 12:14 in the morning. Her black sedan waited near the far curb, clean but ordinary, chosen because it would attract just enough attention without looking staged. Across the road, half hidden beneath the dark branches of an oak tree, Daniel Mercer sat inside his patrol car and watched her. Maya did not look in his direction. She unlocked the sedan, placed the coffee in the center console, and pulled onto Jefferson Avenue at exactly 28 miles per hour. Mercer followed 30 seconds later. She saw his headlights in the rearview mirror before she reached the first traffic light. They stayed 2 car lengths behind her through the intersection, then moved closer when the road narrowed beyond the last row of businesses. Maya kept both hands on the wheel. Beneath her sleeve, a slim transmitter rested against her wrist, sending a steady signal to a Federal Bureau of Investigation surveillance vehicle parked less than a mile away. Special Agent Ethan Cole listened from inside that vehicle, tracking her position while another agent monitored the audio feed. The operation had been planned carefully, but no plan could control what Mercer might do once he believed he was alone. Maya turned onto a quiet two-lane road bordered by wet fields and scattered houses. She maintained the speed limit. She used her turn signal. She did nothing that could justify a stop. The patrol lights appeared anyway. Red, blue, red again. Maya pulled onto the shoulder, placed the car in park, and lowered her window 3 inches. Rain tapped softly against the roof as Mercer approached with one hand resting near his belt. License and registration, he said without greeting her. Maya handed him both documents. He studied them longer than necessary, then glanced toward the leather seats and clean dashboard. This your car? Yes, officer. Registered to an address over in Westover Hills. That is correct. His eyes returned to her face. You live there? The registration is current. Mercer gave a humorless smile. That was not my question. Maya met his gaze without challenging it. Yes, I live there. He leaned slightly toward the window, looking past her as if expecting the interior to confess something she would not. A car like this costs a lot of money. It does. What do you do? Maya paused just long enough for him to notice. Consulting. It was the cover story prepared for the operation. Mercer looked unconvinced, not because the answer lacked detail, but because he had already decided what kind of answer he expected from her. Step out of the vehicle. May I ask why I was stopped? His jaw tightened. You were drifting near the center line. Maya had not drifted once. The camera mounted inside her sedan had recorded every foot of the drive. I understand, she said, opening the door slowly. Mercer watched her step onto the wet pavement, then instructed her to stand near the rear of the car. His questions came quickly after that. Where had she been? Why was she driving after midnight? Why did she seem nervous? Each answer Maya gave was calm and precise, yet Mercer treated her composure as proof of deception. When she asked whether his body camera was recording, his expression hardened. You asked too many questions. I am trying to understand the situation. The situation is that I decide what happens next. From several hundred yards away, Ethan heard every word. Maya glanced briefly at the patrol car and noticed the dark lens mounted above its dashboard. Mercer had switched off the camera on his uniform, but he had forgotten the one facing the road. That mistake mattered. So did the way he kept looking toward her driver's seat. Maya understood then that he had not stopped her to search for evidence. He had stopped her because he had brought evidence with him. That realization changed the operation in an instant. Until then, Maya had believed she was controlling the shape of the encounter. She had chosen the road, the hour, the vehicle, and the cover story. She had entered Mercer's patrol zone because 6 months of complaints, sealed records, and abandoned cases all pointed toward the same pattern. Drivers were stopped without clear cause. Searches followed. Small bags appeared in places too convenient to be accidental. Reports were written with nearly identical language. Yet patterns were not convictions, and suspicion was not proof. The Federal Bureau of Investigation needed Mercer to reveal his method while every step could be documented. Maya had volunteered to become the person he underestimated. What she had not expected was the silence from their source inside the department. 3 hours before the operation began, a confidential message was supposed to confirm Mercer's route assignment and identify which supervisor was working the overnight shift. The message never arrived. Ethan Cole had called once, then twice, using the emergency contact procedure. No answer. At first, they blamed poor timing. Then the source's secure telephone went offline. Maya had considered postponing, but postponement carried its own danger. Mercer's schedule was changing the following week, and a sealed internal complaint had already vanished from the department database. Someone inside the building knew questions were being asked. The only uncertainty was how much they knew and whether Mercer had been warned. Now, standing in the rain while he watched her car with practiced interest, Maya felt that uncertainty tighten around the scene. Perhaps he had selected her because she fit his usual target. Perhaps he had recognized the vehicle from surveillance. Perhaps the stop was not his trap alone, but part of a larger effort to identify who was investigating him. She could not signal Ethan without changing her behavior. She could not reach for the transmitter. She could only continue. Mercer walked around the sedan slowly, shining his flashlight across the rear seat and floorboards. "Anything in here I should know about?" he asked. "No, no medication, no weapons, nothing that belongs to somebody else. Nothing illegal." He stopped near the driver's door and studied her. That sounded rehearsed. "You asked a direct question. Most people do not answer that calmly." Maya held his gaze. Most people are not questioned this way during a traffic stop. For a moment, the only sound was the rain brushing the grass beyond the shoulder. Mercer's expression became unreadable. Then another patrol car appeared in the distance. Its headlights moved closer before it pulled in behind Mercer's vehicle. A younger white officer stepped out, adjusting his rain jacket as he approached. His nameplate read Noah Bennett. "Everything all right?" Noah asked. Mercer did not. "Look at him. Possible narcotics. Driver is being difficult." Noah glanced at Maya, then toward the sedan. "Did you already call for a search unit?" "I do not need one." Mercer tapped the dark camera on his chest. Battery failed again. Noah's eyes rested on the camera for half a second too long. Maya noticed. So did Mercer. "Problem?" Mercer asked. "No, sir." "Then stand by the patrol car." Noah obeyed, but uncertainty followed him across the wet pavement. Mercer turned back to Maya and lowered his voice. "People think rules protect them because they have never met someone who understands how rules actually work." Maya felt another faint pulse beneath her sleeve, but this one was different. 3 short vibrations. The emergency signal from Ethan. It meant the surveillance team had detected an unexpected risk nearby. Mercer reached for her keys and smiled as though the night had already ended in his favor. Maya finally understood the truth. The operation had been designed as a trap for one corrupt officer. But somewhere beyond the flashing lights, someone else was watching the trap close. Mercer opened the driver's door and leaned inside as if the vehicle already belonged to him. Maya remained beside the patrol car, hands visible, posture steady, while Noah stood several feet away beneath the weak shelter of his hood. The younger officer watched Mercer move through the sedan with a familiarity that did not look like a careful search. It looked like routine. "You should be recording this," Noah said. Mercer did not turn around. "I told you the camera failed. The department requires a supervisor notification when that happens." Mercer straightened and looked over the roof of the car. "Are you quoting policy to me on the side of the road?" Noah hesitated. "I am saying the stop should be documented." Mercer gave a short laugh. "Everything will be documented when I write the report." Maya watched Noah's face tighten. He had noticed the same thing she had noticed. Mercer did not see procedure as protection. He saw it as a story he could rewrite later. A sedan passed slowly, then pulled onto the opposite shoulder. A woman in the passenger seat raised a telephone. Toward the flashing lights. Mercer saw her and immediately changed his tone. "Ma'am, remain where you are and follow instructions." He called toward Maya, loud enough for the people across the road to hear. Maya had not moved. She understood what he was doing. He was creating an audience and giving that audience a version of events before they could form their own. "I am following your instructions," she said. "Do not argue with me." His voice became sharper. Another car slowed. Then another. The isolated road no longer felt empty, yet the growing attention did not make Maya safer. It gave Mercer a stage. He walked toward her with her registration in one hand and pointed toward the rear of the patrol vehicle. "Stand closer to the car." Maya took one step. "Closer." She moved again. "Turn around." She complied. Each command was unnecessary, but necessity was not the point. Mercer wanted movement. He wanted hesitation. He wanted one imperfect response that could later be described as resistance. Imagine standing beneath cold rain while a stranger with a badge decides that your calm is suspicious, your questions are dangerous, and your dignity is something he must reduce before strangers will believe him. Maya felt the eyes from across the road. Some were concerned. Others were curious. A few had already begun to accept Mercer's performance as truth. He lowered his voice so only she and Noah could hear. "You people always think staying calm makes you look innocent." Maya turned her head slightly. "What people?" Noah looked up. Mercer's expression hardened. "Do not play games. I asked what you meant. You know exactly what I meant." The words hung between them, clearer than any confession he had intended to make. Noah shifted his weight. "Officer Mercer, maybe we should wait for the search unit." Mercer faced him. "If you want to survive in this job, stop worrying about every small rule. Sometimes you clean up the street first and explain it later." Noah looked toward the dark body camera again. Maya could almost see the decision forming behind his eyes, the struggle between obedience and conscience. Mercer returned to the sedan and opened the rear door, then the trunk, moving items just enough to make the search appear thorough. He asked Maya where she had purchased the car, how much she earned, whether anyone had loaned her money, and why someone in consulting would be driving through that area after midnight. Each question carried the same hidden accusation. You do not belong here. Maya answered with measured patience, but Mercer grew more irritated with every response. Her control denied him the reaction he wanted. You are making this harder than it needs to be, he said. No, Maya replied. I am making it harder to misrepresent. For the first time, Noah looked directly at her, and she knew he had heard the deeper meaning. Mercer had heard it too. His eyes narrowed. Then he reached into his jacket, removed a pair of gloves, and pulled them on with deliberate care. The people across the road kept recording. Noah kept watching. Maya kept breathing slowly. And Mercer, convinced that everyone around him was either powerless or afraid, prepared to repeat the act that had already ruined more lives than he knew. Mercer returned to the driver's side and bent into the sedan again, his shoulders blocking most of the view from the road. Noah stood near the patrol car, watching in silence as Mercer moved one hand beneath the seat and then withdrew it a moment later. The movement was quick, ordinary, almost invisible. But Maya saw the reflection in the rain-darkened window. So did Noah. Mercer straightened with a small plastic bag held between two gloved fingers. His face settled into the expression of a man who had performed this scene before and already knew how every witness was supposed to understand it. There it is, he announced. His voice carried across the road toward the people recording with their telephones. Suspected narcotics, found beneath the driver's seat. The woman across the road lowered her telephone slightly. A man beside her whispered something Maya could not hear. The change in the crowd was immediate. Concern became doubt. Doubt became distance. A moment earlier, Maya had been a woman questioned without cause. Now a single bag had rewritten her in their minds. Mercer turned toward her with satisfaction. Still want to tell me there is nothing illegal in your car? Maya looked at the bag, then at the strangers who no longer seemed certain they should keep recording. That is why this works, she said. Mercer frowned. What works? A small bag speaks louder than a black woman, especially when a uniform tells people what to believe. The rain softened until individual drops could be heard against the patrol car. Noah stared at the bag in Mercer's hand. I did not see that during the first look, he said. Mercer turned sharply. You were standing over there. I saw you reach beneath the seat. Then you saw me find evidence. Noah did not answer. Mercer stepped closer to him. Be careful about what you think you saw. The warning was quiet, but Maya heard it clearly. So did the transmitter beneath her sleeve. Every word traveled to Ethan Cole and the Federal Bureau of Investigation team waiting nearby. Mercer placed the bag inside a clear evidence pouch, sealed it, and wrote the time on the label. His movements were efficient, but not careful. He never photographed the bag in its original location. He never called a supervisor. He never asked Noah to confirm the discovery. Each missing step became another piece of the record forming against him. Turn around, Mercer ordered Maya. She complied. He secured her wrists in front of her and recited only part of the standard warning before opening the rear door of his patrol car. You are under arrest for possession of a controlled substance. Maya looked back at her sedan. Its dashboard camera still faced the road, recording Mercer, Noah, and the exact position of every vehicle. My car needs to be preserved exactly as it is, she said. Mercer laughed. You do not get to give instructions. I am making a formal request that no evidence be moved, altered, or removed without documentation. His smile faded. You sound like a lawyer. I sound like someone who understands evidence. Mercer guided her into the rear seat and closed the door. Through the glass, Maya watched Noah remain beside the sedan, staring at the driver's seat as though the truth might still be visible there. Mercer walked to him and spoke too softly for Maya to hear, but Noah's face revealed enough. Fear, doubt, and the beginning of a choice. A few minutes later, the patrol car pulled away from the shoulder. The people across the road disappeared behind them, along with Maya's sedan and the silent camera Mercer had forgotten. He believed the public humiliation was complete. He believed the evidence pouch in the front seat had secured his version of the night. He believed the woman behind him was now trapped inside his report. Maya felt the transmitter pulse once against her wrist. Ethan was still listening. The operation was still alive. And as the station lights appeared in the distance, Maya understood that Mercer had given them proof of the crime, but not yet the name of the person protecting him. The station looked almost empty when Mercer drove through the rear entrance, but Maya knew quiet buildings often protected the loudest secrets. Fluorescent lights hummed above the booking area, throwing a pale glow across gray walls, metal desks, and rows of locked filing cabinets. Mercer escorted her past the main counter without entering the arrest into the computer. That omission mattered. So did the way the desk officer avoided looking at him. "Where are you taking her?" Noah asked as he followed them inside. "Interview room 3, Mercer replied. Noah stopped. "The recording system in that room has been out for weeks." Mercer glanced back with a thin smile. "Exactly." Maya said nothing. The transmitter against her wrist remained warm, but the signal had weakened beneath the concrete walls. One pulse every few seconds told her Ethan was still receiving something, though perhaps not every word. Mercer opened the interview room and directed her toward a metal chair beside a scarred wooden table. There was no visible camera, no observation window, and no active recording light. A clock above the door showed 12:43 in the morning. Mercer placed the sealed evidence pouch on the table, followed by a printed confession form. "This can be easy," he said. "You sign, the prosecutor sees cooperation, and maybe you go home sooner." Maya studied the paper without touching it. Several lines had already been completed. Her name, the location of the stop, the description of the bag, even a statement claiming she had admitted ownership. "I never said this belonged to me." Mercer pulled out the chair across from her and sat down. "You do not need to say everything out loud for me to know what happened. That is not how evidence works. Evidence works however the report says it works." His answer came too quickly, too comfortably. Maya lifted her eyes. "And who makes sure no one questions the report?" Mercer leaned back, amused by what he believed was desperation. "You think every case gets examined by some television lawyer? Most people take the deal. Public defenders are overloaded. Prosecutors want clean numbers. Judges want crowded calendars cleared. By the time anyone asks questions, the evidence is gone and the paperwork is final." Maya let a few seconds pass. Silence encouraged arrogant people to fill it. "What about the body camera?" she asked. "Technical failure. The search photographs? Not required for every arrest. The dashboard recording?" Something shifted in his expression, small but visible. Then he smiled again. "Vehicles get reassigned. Files get corrupted. Things happen." Maya understood. He knew the dashboard camera could expose him, and someone at the station had the access to erase it. "You have done this before," she said. Mercer looked toward the closed door. "I have kept dangerous people off the street for 17 years. By choosing who looks dangerous? By understanding this city better than people who write rules from comfortable offices." The door opened, and Captain Rebecca Shaw entered wearing a dark coat over her uniform. She was a white woman in her early 50s, composed and precise, with silver beginning at her temples. Mercer stood immediately. The respect in his posture told Maya more than any introduction could. Shaw examined the evidence pouch, then the unfinished confession. "Why is she not processed?" she asked. "I wanted the statement first," Mercer replied. Shaw looked at Maya, not with surprise, but recognition. "Then get it. We have less than an hour before the morning system backup." There. It was. Not protection offered after the crime. Coordination prepared before it. Shaw picked up the evidence pouch and turned toward the door. Maya spoke calmly. "Captain, chain of custody requires the recovering officer to log that item before transferring it." Shaw stopped, then looked back. "You seem unusually familiar with procedure." Maya met her eyes. "And you seem unusually worried about the clock." The room became still. Mercer's confidence wavered. Shaw's did not. She closed the door, placed the pouch back on the table, and said, "Officer Mercer, make certain she signs before anyone else enters this room." Maya felt 3 rapid pulses beneath her sleeve. The signal was strong again. Ethan had heard the captain's name. The investigation had finally reached the person standing above Mercer, and neither of them realized they had just invited the truth into a room they believed could not record it. Mercer remained beside the table after Captain Shaw left, but the confidence he had carried from the roadside had begun to thin. He pushed the confession form toward Maya and placed a pen beside it. "You heard the captain. he said. Sign. Maya looked at the empty signature line. You wrote that I admitted the bag was mine. That is what the evidence shows. Evidence cannot speak. Mercer leaned closer, lowering his voice. Reports speak. Officers speak. Prosecutors repeat what they are given. That is how this works. Maya let the silence stretch. The transmitter beneath her sleeve had stopped pulsing, which meant Ethan was no longer sending reassurance. He was moving. Somewhere beyond the concrete walls, the federal team was closing the distance, but Maya still needed Mercer and Shaw to expose the full arrangement before the room changed. How many reports? She asked. Mercer frowned. What? How many times have you written the same story? He stared at her, then gave a quiet laugh. You think you are the first person to claim innocence. No. I think I am the first person who knew your wording before you said it. That unsettled him. Maya could see it in the way his eyes moved toward the door. Before he could respond, Captain Shaw returned carrying a small storage drive and a yellow evidence envelope. She locked the door behind her. The vehicle file is being handled, she told Mercer. Once the dashboard recording is removed, the stop will match the report. Mercer exhaled with visible relief. What about Bennett? He will remember what protects his career. Maya looked at Shaw. And if he does not? Shaw placed the storage drive on the table. Young officers learn quickly. Those who do not learn usually find another department. Mercer smiled again. He believed the danger had passed. Maya reached toward her wrist as though adjusting the metal bracelet beneath her sleeve. Shaw noticed. What is that? Something you should have checked before discussing evidence destruction. Maya slid the bracelet free and placed it beside the confession form. A small blue light blinked once. Mercer's smile disappeared. Shaw stepped closer, studying the device. Turn it off. It has been transmitting since the traffic stop. The room fell silent. Mercer looked toward the walls, then back at Maya. Who are you? She did not answer immediately. She removed a slim credential case from the hidden lining of her jacket and opened it on the table. The gold seal caught the fluorescent light. Special Agent Maya Brooks, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Public Corruption Unit. Mercer stared at the identification as though the letters might rearrange themselves into something less final. Shaw recovered first. That badge proves nothing about tonight. Maya looked at the storage drive. Your conversation proved enough. Heavy footsteps moved through the hallway. The door opened before Shaw could reach it. Ethan Cole entered with 3 federal agents, followed by Noah Bennett and the station commander. Noah looked pale, but his voice was steady. I preserved the patrol car recording before anyone could delete it. Mercer turned toward him. You have no idea what you are doing. Noah met his eyes. For the first time tonight, I do. Ethan collected the bracelet, the confession form, and the evidence pouch without disturbing their positions. Another agent photographed the storage drive. Captain Shaw's composure finally cracked when she realized the room had become a crime scene and every object inside it now belonged to the investigation. Maya stood slowly. Officer Mercer, you confirmed the search, the discovery, and the report. Captain Shaw, you confirmed the plan to remove the recording. Neither of you was speaking to a frightened suspect. She closed the credential case. You were speaking to the agent assigned to investigate you. Outside the room, more doors opened and more officers gathered in silence. Mercer had believed the reveal was Maya's badge. It was not. The real reveal was that every person he had dismissed as powerless had become part of the evidence against him. By sunrise, the station no longer belonged to whispers. Federal agents sealed the evidence room, secured the computer servers, and collected every report connected to Daniel Mercer and Captain Rebecca Shaw. Maya stood near the booking desk while technicians copied years of records that had once seemed ordinary only because no one had placed them side by side. The same phrases appeared again and again. The same reasons for traffic stops. The same locations where contraband was supposedly discovered. The same missing camera files. What had looked like separate arrests now formed a single pattern, and the pattern had names attached to it. Marcus Reed was the first person Maya visited after the initial review. He had spent 18 months carrying a conviction that had cost him his job, his apartment, and the trust of people who never asked how the evidence had appeared beneath his passenger seat. When Maya told him the case would be reopened, he did not celebrate. He simply sat at his kitchen table and asked, "Will they finally believe me?" Maya answered carefully, "They will see the proof." Over the next several weeks, the truth moved through the city one file at a time. A mother named Denise Carter had lost custody of her son after Mercer claimed to find narcotics in her vehicle during a school pickup. Her conviction was vacated, and the family court restored her rights. A college student named Isaiah Grant had been removed from his scholarship program after an arrest that followed the same script. His record was cleared, and the university invited him to return. An older mechanic named Walter Price had closed the repair shop he had owned for 27 years because customers stopped coming after his name appeared in the local news. The city issued a public apology, but Walter told reporters that an apology could not return the years taken from him. Noah Bennett became the witness who connected the documents to the behavior behind them. He provided copies of private notes he had kept after noticing unexplained searches, altered timestamps, and instructions to avoid certain cameras. He admitted that he had remained silent too long. Maya did not excuse that silence, but she recognized the courage required to end it. His testimony helped investigators identify 2 prosecutors who had ignored repeated inconsistencies and a records supervisor who had deleted video files on Shaw's orders. The case grew beyond one roadside stop. It became an examination of how misconduct survived when each person protected only a small part of the lie. Mercer and Shaw were formally charged with conspiracy, evidence tampering, obstruction, and violations of civil rights. Their badges were removed. Their authority disappeared. Yet Maya understood that punishment alone was not justice. Justice also meant repairing what could still be repaired. She attended each hearing where an old conviction was dismissed and watched people walk out carrying documents that finally described them as innocent. Some cried. Some remained silent. Some looked almost confused because freedom on paper did not immediately restore everything they had lost. Months later, Marcus stood outside the courthouse holding the order that cleared his name. Mercer was being escorted through a separate entrance when he saw Maya nearby. He paused and asked, "Did you know from the beginning that I would do it?" Maya looked at him without anger. "No. I knew only that you believed no one important was watching." Mercer glanced toward Marcus, Denise, Isaiah, Walter, and the other families gathered along the courthouse steps. Maya continued, "That was your mistake. You decided importance by skin color, clothing, addresses, and fear. You never considered that every person you dismissed was worthy of being seen." The courthouse doors closed behind him. The people outside remained. He had planted lies to bury their voices, but the truth returned through every life he had tried to erase. 6 months after the courthouse hearings began, Maya returned to the same two-lane road where Mercer had stopped her. The rain was gone now. Late afternoon sunlight stretched across the fields, turning the pavement gold at the edges, and the roadside no longer felt like a place where the truth had almost disappeared. A new camera had been installed inside every patrol vehicle in the district. Recording systems could no longer be disabled without an automatic alert to supervisors and an independent review board. Search reports required photographs, witness verification, and immediate evidence logging. The reforms were not perfect. Maya knew rules could never replace character. Still, rules could make silence harder to hide behind. She parked near the shoulder and stepped out beside Marcus Reed, who had asked to meet her there after receiving compensation from the state. For several moments, he said nothing. He simply looked down the road where his own life had changed years earlier. "I used to drive 10 extra miles to avoid this place," he said. "Even after my name was cleared, I could not come back." Maya nodded. "A cleared record does not erase a memory." Marcus looked toward her. "Then why did you come?" "Because I did not want the last thing this road represented to be fear." Across the field, evening wind moved through the tall grass in slow waves. Marcus unfolded a document from his jacket. It was the final order restoring his commercial license, which allowed him to return to the transportation company where he had once worked. He had already accepted a position training new drivers. Denise Carter had reunited with her son and begun speaking at community meetings about due process. Isaiah Grant had returned to college and was studying public policy. Walter Price had reopened his repair shop, not in the old building, but in a brighter location with his family name painted across the front. Their lives had not returned to what they had been. They had moved forward into something different, carrying proof that the system had failed them and proof that failure did not have to be permanent. Noah Bennett had also remained with the department. His testimony had cost him friendships and ended the easy path his career might have taken. but he had chosen to help create a training program that taught young officers how misconduct grows through obedience, fear, and small acts of silence. When reporters asked whether he considered himself a hero, he always answered the same way. A hero would have spoken sooner. Maya respected that answer because it did not ask for forgiveness before accountability. As the sun lowered, Marcus asked the question he had carried since the day she first visited his kitchen. Was it worth risking your career to prove what they were doing? Maya looked toward the road. My career was never the most important thing at risk. She thought about the people who had never been believed, the families who had learned to fear flashing lights, and the files that had once reduced entire lives to a few dishonest sentences. The danger begins when authority decides some people are too unimportant to defend, she said. It ends only when someone refuses to accept that decision. Marcus folded the document and placed it carefully inside his jacket. Together, they watched a patrol car approach in the distance. It slowed as it passed, its camera light clearly visible, then continued without stopping. No accusation, no manufactured suspicion, only a vehicle moving down an ordinary American road. Maya understood that justice rarely arrived as one dramatic moment. It came through reopened cases, restored names, difficult testimony, and systems forced to remember the people they had ignored. Mercer had believed a hidden bag could make truth disappear. Instead, it exposed every lie protecting him. He had worn a badge and believed it made his word final. Maya carried the truth, and the truth gave the final word back to everyone he had tried to silence.